Hello, welcome back to Let's Play Jane's Fighters Anthology as we continue with the General Aircraft Showcase. So today we have a bit of a special one, in that it doesn't actually exist, at least as far as the general public's aware. So today we will be doing the Aurora Spyplane that featured in the very first mission of the Egyptian campaign. So let's go through this and hop right in. Oh wow, that's not the cockpit I expected. I don't know what I was expecting, but certainly not that. So let's crank up that throttle and see just how fast and high they'll let us go. Now, in the meantime, the background of the Aurora in real life, at least, is that it was a rumored mid-1980s reconnaissance aircraft. There's no substantial evidence that it ever flew, so for the most part, it's regarded as something of a myth or an urban legend. God, this thing goes so fast. Holy crap, we're still accelerating. Alright, I gotta... Alright. We are still accelerating at a 30-degree climb. That's ridiculous. Especially for an aircraft this big. How high is it going to let us go? I think we're about to hit the ceiling of the world here. Oh my god. Now just imagine this thing carried weapons. 100,000 feet. We do have... How much fuel are we consuming? A fair amount. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this thing does burn through fuel quite quickly. Alright, that's fine. I expected a lot higher fuel reserves, but this is okay. We've seen the... We've seen the maximum altitude we can fly to. So we'll just even out here and continue on a modified patrol path. Yeah, that's a lot more reasonable fuel consumption. So we'll pull ourselves up here, and there we go. Alright, so the U.S. government has consistently denied that such an aircraft was ever built. Aviation and space reference site aerospaceweb.org concluded the evidence surrounding the Aurora is circumstantial, pure conjecture, and there is little reason to contradict the government's position. And indeed, former Skunkworks director Ben Rich confirmed that Aurora was simply a myth in Skunkworks, which was a 1994 book detailing his days as director. He wrote that a colonel working in the Pentagon arbitrarily assigned the name Aurora to the funding for the B-2 bomber design competition. Somehow the name was leaked to the media. Now, the Aurora legend started in March 1990 when Aviation Week and Space Technology magazine broke the news that the term Aurora had been inadvertently included in the 1985 U.S. budget as an allocation of $455 million for black aircraft production in fiscal year 1987. According to Aviation Week, Project Aurora referred to a group of exotic aircraft and not to one particular airframe. Funding of the project allegedly reached $2.3 billion in fiscal year 1987, according to a 1986 procurement document obtained by Aviation Week. In the 1994 book Skunk Works, Ben Rich says that it was the budgetary code for the fly-off that resulted in the B-2 Spirit bomber, as previously mentioned. Now, there have been claims of sightings of the Aurora or aircraft similar to the Aurora. So, by the late 1980s, many aerospace industry observers believed the U.S. had the technological capability to build a Mach 5 replacement for the aging Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird, and detailed examinations of the U.S. defense budget claimed to have found money missing or channeled into black projects. And by the mid-1990s, reports surfaced of sightings of unidentified aircraft flying over California and the United Kingdom involving odd-shaped contrails, sonic booms, and related phenomena that suggested the U.S. had developed such an aircraft. Nothing ever linked any of these observations to any program or aircraft type, but the name Aurora was often tagged on these as a way of explaining the operations. In late August 1989, while working as an engineer on the jack-up barge GSF Galveston Key in the North Sea, Chris Gibson and another witness saw an unfamiliar isosceles triangle-shaped Delta aircraft apparently refueling from a Boeing KC-135 straddle tanker and accompanied by a pair of F-111 fighter bombers. Gibson and his girlfriend watched the aircraft for several minutes until they went out of sight. He subsequently drew a sketch of the formation. When the sighting was made public in 1992, the British Defense Secretary Tom King was told there is no knowledge in the MOD of a black program of this nature, although it would not surprise relevant desk officers in the Air Staff and Defense Intelligence Staff if it did exist. A crash at RAF Boscombe Down in Wiltshire on the 26th of September 1994 appeared closely linked to black missions, according to a report in Air Forces Monthly. Further investigation was hampered by USAF aircraft flooding into the base. Special Air Service personnel arrived in plainclothes in an Augusta 109. The crash site was protected from view by fire engines and tarpaulins, and the base was closed to all flights soon afterwards. An unsubstantiated claim on the Horstkinas Village website purports to show photos of the trail left after an unusual sonic boom was heard over the village in July 2002. In 2005, the information was used in a BBC report about the Aurora project. A series of unusual sonic booms was detected in Southern California beginning in mid to late 1991 and recorded by United States Geological Survey centers across Southern California used to pinpoint earthquake epicenters. Sonic booms were characteristic of a smaller vehicle rather than of the 37-meter-long Space Shuttle orbiter. Furthermore, neither the shuttle nor NASA's single SR-71B was operating on the days the booms had been registered. In the article In Plain Sight, which appeared on the Washington City paper on the 3rd of July 1992, pages 12 through 13, one of the seismologists, Jim Morey, noted, "We can't tell anything about the vehicle. They seem stronger than any other sonic booms that we record once in a while. They've all come on Thursday mornings about the same time, between 4 and 7. Former NASA sonic boom expert Dom Maglieri studied the 15-year-old sonic boom data from California Institute of Technology and has deemed that the data showed something at 90,000 feet, or about 27 kilometers above the Earth's surface, in the Mach 4 to Mach 5.2 range. He also said the booms did not look like those from aircraft that had traveled through the atmosphere many miles away at Los Angeles International Airport. Rather, they appeared to be booms from a high-altitude aircraft directly above the ground moving at high speeds. The boom signatures of the two different aircraft patterns are wildly different. There was nothing in particular to tie these events to any aircraft, but they served to increase the number of stories about the Aurora." I should leave my fuel indicator up. And I think it's time we,
Inbound to waypoint Bravo, bearing 15, descend to Angel 40.
we make our, turn the port here. The mission that we're kind of simulating here is basically kind of reminiscent of an SR-71 mission with a high-altitude, high-speed reconnaissance overflight of Russian territory here next to the Baltics. And we'll leave ourselves in a slight steady climb, so that way we can continue to slightly gain altitude and gain the effects of slightly improved fuel economy. On the 23rd of March 1992, near Amarillo, Texas, Stephen Douglas photographed the Donuts on a Rope contrail and linked the sighting to distinctive sounds. He described the engine noise as a strange, loud, pulsating roar, unique, a deep pulsating rumble that vibrated the house and made the windows shake, similar to rocket engine noise but deeper with evenly timed pulses. In addition to providing the first photographs of the distinctive contrail previously reported by many, the significance of this sighting was enhanced by Douglas's reports of intercepts of radio communications. Air-to-air communications were between an AWACS aircraft with the call sign Dragnet 51 from Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma, and two unknown aircraft using the call signs Dark Star November and Dark Star Mike. Messages consisted of phonetically transmitted alphanumerics. It is not known whether this radio traffic had any association with the pulsar that had just flown over Amarillo. Dark Star is also a call sign of AWACS aircraft from a different squadron at Tinker Air Force Base. A month later, radio enthusiasts in California monitoring Edwards Air Force Base radar, call sign Joshua Control, heard early morning radio transmissions between Joshua and a high-flying aircraft using the call sign Gas Pipe. They're at 67,000 feet, 81 miles out was heard, followed by 70 miles out, now 36,000 feet above Kaleidoscope. As in the past, nothing linked these observations to any particular aircraft or program, but the attribution to the Aurora helped expand the legend. In February 1994, a former resident of Rachel, Nevada, and Area 51 enthusiast Chuck Clark claimed to have filmed the Aurora taking off from the Groom Lake facility. In the David Darlington book Area 51, The Dreamland Chronicles, he said, "I even saw the Aurora take off one night, or an aircraft that matched the Aurora's reputed configuration, a sharp delta with twin tails about 130 feet long. It taxied out of a lit hangar at 2:30 a.m. and used a lot of runway to take off. It had one red light on top, but the minute the wheels left the runway, the light went off, and that was the last I saw of it. I didn't hear it because the wind was blowing from behind me towards the base." I asked when this had taken place. February 1994. Obviously, they didn't think there was anybody out there. It was 30 below zero, probably 90 below with the wind chill factor. I had hiked into Whitesides from a different, harder way than usual and stayed there 2 or 3 days among the rocks under a camouflage tarp with 6 layers of clothes on. I had an insulated face mask and 2 sleeping bags, so I didn't present a heat signature. I videotaped the aircraft through a telescope with a 500mm f4 lens coupled via a C-ring to a digital video camera with 520 scan lines resolution, which is better than TV. The author then asked, "Where's the tape?" "Locked away. That's a legitimate Spyplane. My purpose is not to give away legitimate national defense. When they get ready to unveil it, I'll probably release the tape." Heard that one before. Additional claims. By 1996, reports associated with the Aurora name dropped off in frequency, suggesting to people who believed that the aircraft existed that had only ever been a prototype or that it had a short service life. In 2000, Aberdeen Press and Journal writer Nick Outerside wrote a piece on U.S. stealth technology in Scotland. Citing confidential sources, he alleged RAF USAF Machrihanish in Kintyre, Argyll, to be a base for Aurora aircraft. Machrihanich's almost 2-mile-long runway makes it suitable for high-speed, high-altitude experimental aircraft with the fenced-off coastal approach, making it ideal for takeoffs and landings to be made well away from eyes or cameras of the press and public. Oceanic Air Traffic Control at Prestwick, Outerside says, also tracked fast-moving radar blips. It was claimed by staff that a hypersonic jet was the only rational conclusion for the readings. In 2006, aviation writer Bill Sweetman put together 20 years of examining budget holes. Unexplained sonic booms, as well as the Gibson sighting, concluded, "This evidence helps establish the program's initial existence. My investigations continue to turn up evidence that suggests current activity. For example, having spent years sifting through military budgets tracking untraceable dollars and code names, I learned how to sort out where the money was going. This year, when I looked at the Air Force operations budget in detail, I found a $9 billion black hole that seems a perfect fit for a project like Aurora." In June 2017, Aviation Week reported that Bob Weiss, the general manager of Skunk Works, provided some confirmation of a research project and stated that hypersonic flight technology was now mature and efforts were underway to fly an aircraft with it. And that's a brief overview of the Aurora. Perhaps somewhat related would be the SR-72 by Lockheed Martin, which I guess has now been made famous by the new Top Gun Maverick movie. And that's probably the closest we'll get to an actual Aurora. Now, is Aurora real? I mean, I believe the guy from Lockheed that said that Aurora was the code name for the B-2 program. So I don't think Aurora was this spy plane, and I don't think the U.S. had a hypersonic spy plane in '96. The technological capability might have been there, but it would have been ridiculously expensive, especially with the Cold War winding down and spy satellites becoming ubiquitous. It kind of just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to maintain a program like this when you can kind of get the same data from spy satellites for less cost and risk, and for less, a less aggressive manner too. Since, flying a plane over another nation's territory without their consent generally isn't well regarded. But some of these descriptions are detailed enough that I figure they're either people who know something about hypersonic technology, or they just happen to make up something really close to how hypersonics work. Because like the pulsating engine, which you can kind of hear replicated in game, that I have heard of, like a pulse jet engine, or like scramjets, and that might be what it sounds like. I am by no means an aerospace expert or anything, but I could see it. Likewise, the Delta configuration makes sense to a degree, because that's already what we use for high, or that's basically one of the ideal forms for high-speed supersonic flight. And in fact, you do see a lot of current designs with it. The Chinese, a lot of European nations go with the Delta. And the U.S. has experimented with it, but I think we've managed to make do with our more traditional designs. So I think there might have been like a technology demonstrator, but I think that that was decommissioned once the Cold War had ended, and the budgets had all dried up, because we thought, hey, we're not gonna fight anyone, we don't need this anymore, especially with the move to counterterrorism. Now today, though, we do have the SR-72, which may or may not be in development. It's been not exactly confirmed, but Lockheed certainly has the proposal for it. Whether they're actively developing that proposal, I don't know. Although they did help in designing it for that Top Gun Maverick movie, which apparently freaked China out enough that they moved the satellite to observe it. So, and again, it's kind of the same deal, I think, with, it's cool and all, and there would certainly be, as like a weapons platform, it would certainly be feasible, but as like a reconnaissance aircraft, I don't think there's a need necessarily for the SR-72. There can be some use for a high-speed reconnaissance aircraft, but generally, again, going back to my original point, I think satellites are just a lot less aggressive of an act, and there's so many up there right now that you're almost always going to have coverage. certainly it would be a use for reconnaissance aircraft for when you don't have coverage. But I think that's mostly filled by tactical aircraft with, like the F-14 with the TARP spot or whatever the equivalents are, or the, the Strike Eagles and the Super Hornets and the F-35s right now. So, for what basically amounts to a very fast, very expensive platform with cameras, I don't see it. As a strike aircraft, though, I can definitely see a space for the SR-72, as that gives you a long-range, high-speed standoff platform for deploying various, potentially also hypersonic weapons. So I could definitely see that, as well as transport aircraft. Certainly, I think if they could reliably get it to work, I think I could see the president, for example, being very interested in a hypersonic transport aircraft. Because why spend 8 hours crossing an ocean when you can spend 2, As it is, I'm kind of surprised they don't have a supersonic airliner for the president already, but again, I think that comes down the cost, and some of that too is probably to civil airspace regulations, since you can't go supersonic, over cities and stuff, which happens to be most of the area that the president is flying to, is to other cities, so. Alright, so let's go in for our landing now. Okay, I don't have, okay, air-to-ground radar, we do have that. I need to turn to the right more, I think. Oh, there it is. We are 25 miles out. Alright, we're going to drop our speed to about 40%. I think that'll keep us fast enough that we can, I guess we'll have to find out. Alright, can we get under 350? Because I don't know if how the landing gear is going to stand up to the high speeds. And of course, with this airframe, it's probably not good at, low and slow flight. Oh, guess we're going to find out. We do have landing clearance, so now we will be trying to, we got to bring ourselves down a little bit. As we are a bit too high still. We are losing speed pretty yeah, you can see we're like stalling out here. Now we got that that buffet going on there. And we are supposed to be a lot lower. There we go. Brake on. There we go. And we are down. Man, that is a very interesting aircraft to land. Very beautiful aircraft, though. And because video game physics, we don't need 2-mile runways to accelerate. We can just, come on. We can just land, and that's that. So we'll go and park ourselves, having completed our reconnaissance mission over Russia. And now we can let the technicians offload the film, although by this point I would hope they have digital cameras, so you just have somebody with a cell phone and or a tablet with a Bluetooth uplink, and it's like, download pictures, done, on your way. Although, honestly, for security reasons, they probably wouldn't use a wireless connection, but, USB or something. Probably not USB either, but something, well, maybe USB. The USB or like a military-specific data connection. But there we go. We have landed. We have successfully completed our mission, and it definitely shows that in that first mission, if it had not had the quote-unquote engine trouble, the Egyptians would have posed no fucking threat to this thing. It would have just outrun them or outclimbed them, because this thing is fucking ridiculous. But with that, let's go to debriefing. Of which there isn't much point to that, but if you are interested in this type of concept, I would recommend reading up on the SR-72, since that is kind of the closest we have to the fabled Aurora, and since right now it's still in that gray zone of are we or aren't we, you know, no one really knows, because, you know, top secret and all that. But it wouldn't surprise me given all the hypersonics we're developing across all the services right now in an effort to keep pace with China and Russia. So if you're interested in this type of thing, definitely look up the SR-72. And even the SR-71, since that was kind of like, I mean, that was a Mach 3 plane we made in 1950. You know, so well, the 1950s, I forget exactly which part of the decade, but, you know, that was a real piece of engineering work and a modern marvel, and it's something that we haven't really replicated to this day, even though it would surely be a lot easier now with newer engines, modern design techniques, modern alloys, but they fucking did it in the 1950s. But, in any case, actually, before I sign off, just to follow up on that, the A11, I think it's the A11. It might be the A12. In fact, I think it is the A12. Let me just double check here so I don't give out the wrong information. Yeah, it was the A12. So the SR-71 actually had a predecessor, which was the A12, which was kind of like a smaller version of it that was used by the CIA as in kind of the same role as the high altitude reconnaissance aircraft, and that was based on a similar design for a high-speed Mach 3 interceptor that they were proposing at the time to kind of intercept the Soviet bomber fleets, but with the advent of ICBMs and the high cost of the program, it was eventually canceled. Well, it probably would have been really fucking cool if it weren't. But yeah, if you want to read more into these high-speed, supersonic, hypersonic aircraft, those are the keywords: the A12, the SR-71, and the SR-72. So with that, thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for next time, and stay safe out there, and we'll see you then.